Hey, I'm Michael Ellis. I want to take a little time to talk a little bit about the Incarnation. That's our focus of Christmas. It often gets lost in the shuffle, but it's an important concept. It's important to understand the Incarnation, to understand how God has responded to the human predicament. I want to give you an image about the human predicament and God's response, God's rescue that He's effected for us. This comes from an experience where an Australian theologian and I went for a hiking trip south of Tallahassee, in a geological area called Leon Sinks. This was many years ago before it became a park. And we're walking along and we see what's called Big Dismal Sink, one of many sinks in this trail. And as we approached it, on a tree, the trees are kind of leaning in where the ground has collapsed, forming the sink as the water has affected the dissolving of the limestone underneath, and it collapses in. And affected Big Dismal. It's a bottomless sink because it's such a deep cavern below that it collapsed into. Now here's the scene. We approach, and on a tree right on the edge of the sink was a sign. And it said, "Do not go beyond this point. One slip could be fatal." Well, of course, we have to go past that point, see what the problem is. And what it is there's a steep slope down, very, very, very sandy, loose sand. And you could see that if you went down there too far and began to slip, what would happen is you would slide off the slope, and then you'd fall into the sink. Now, the sink was this big cylinder, about 100 feet across, a stone cylinder, 10 to 12 feet, straight up and down from where the sand ended to where the water began. And of course it goes down maybe 90 to 100 feet below that. So again, a bottomless pit. So if you slipped and into the sink, here you would be in a predicament where it'd be impossible to get out with this sheer rock all the way around in this cylinder. So, what happens if you slide in? Is that the end of it for you? Well, we did observe a couple of things. One is that there was a big log at the time floating in the water. And so you can imagine if you slid in there that you would be okay for a little while. You could hang on to the log and avoid fatigue for a period of time. So you could hang on. And then what we noticed too was that there was a big tree overhanging the sink, and it had a rope that hung down and came almost to the water's edge, or the water's surface. And so we started thinking theologically about this, that the parallel was this, that when God made the world, He established it with a particular order to it. And there were certain things for humanity that points we weren't to go past. They'd be detrimental for us to do that. And of course, we had to go past that. And we found this human predicament of sin, of death, of evil, a whole pattern that we still are dealing with. And so the human predicament is we're all sort of like we've all slid into a Big Dismal Sink. And we can't get ourselves out. That's the problem. Now, we could imagine, let's say, hey, let's all get together and we'll get ourselves out here. So if you can imagine that we choose you, and we're going to swim down as far as we can, come up with all the velocity that we can muster, and we're going to hit, as you stand rigid, we're going to hit the bottom of your feet, and you're going to come flying out of the sink. Except that obviously that won't happen. So human effort alone isn't going to solve the problem. We can't get ourselves out of the predicament by human effort. And fortunately, in God's economy, He's given us the Old Testament period where it was kind of like that log saying, hang on, here's a way to hang on because help is on the way. And then when we get to the person of Jesus Christ, we have one who is in a higher place. Because if you think about that rope that's hanging down to Big Dismal Sink at that time, it had to be placed by someone who was not in the predicament. It had to be placed by someone who was outside of the sink. And so God seeing that we have a predicament that we can't get ourselves out of, comes to our rescue from outside, coming to us to the very point of our predicament. And so the incarnation is really about that rope being lowered to us. Jesus coming down, as it were, on that rope and reaching out his hand to us and saying, here, take my hand, I'll get you out of the predicament, out of the dilemma. Just simply take my hand. That really is what being a Christian really is about. It's realizing that we're in this predicament. We can't solve it ourselves. It's beyond our capacity. We need help from outside. That help has come in the person of Jesus Christ. And we receive that help. We receive his hand and see our rescue effected. So in the incarnation, what we're seeing, what we're proclaiming, is that which humanity couldn't do, God came to do for us. What was beyond our capacity to do, God does for us, so that we can know the full life that God has in mind for us. So I hope that's a helpful illustration of what the incarnation is. That it's not merely a quaint event with a baby being born back there, but it's God coming to us, coming to our aid in a real, effective way. God coming to us from a place of strength to rescue us in our weakness. Take care. God bless.